Glycogen replenishment after lifting is pretty much a dead topic. Never really panned out too much of anything. And I know people hear that and they're like, oh man, that can't be true. But it is a reality. And this is one of the reasons I tell people, look, as long as your protein is kept super, super high, honestly, we get overly obsessed with carbohydrate and fats, meaning people can very, very successfully run very large amounts of one and very low amounts of the other. And quite frankly, in terms of a lot of our body composition and performance and other stuff like that, right? Stuff like that, it probably matters less and less the higher your protein goes. And I mean, case in point, people are like, yeah, but we burn a ton of glycogen lifting. Look, guys, look at some of my workouts. I mean, I've logged everything. I know people are seeing these little clips here to where stuff's just stringed together, and it's just filler content for me to voice over. But these workouts are put up, and some of my workouts are absurdly long. Okay, they're absurdly long. And I do a lot of these workouts on very, very phases with extremely low carbohydrates where I'm running on fat and protein. And I have no problem whatsoever with it. So when we talk about glycogen replenishment and carbohydrates burned, no, you're only burning a lot of carbohydrates if you're burning carbohydrates. Okay, so we need to be clear on that. And I want to be also clear, I do not promote high or low carb diets. I think they both can absolutely be phenomenal. I use both with clients. I use both myself. At the moment, I'm currently back to using, a very low carbohydrate approach. But I'm still able to come in and do high volumes of training for hours. So most of my workouts are like 2 hours long, 6 days a week. And let's be fair. I mean, I'm moving some respectable weights for, not just singles, but even my work sets for, dude who's 48. I'm not doing too shabby. Hey, that was a 500-pound box squat, raw, about as raw as you can get, other than a belt. And, then I did tons and tons and tons of rep work afterwards on machines, after some other back-off squats. So the point here is when you start looking at the data, a really intense, extremely intense workout session only actually burns about 15 grams of carbohydrates per hour. So if you take someone like me, and I'm going to say my workouts are intense, I think it's an intense workout if I come in and do 550 on a deadlift for 3 reps and back off work with 500 for rep work on a deadlift, and then do a bunch of glute ham raises and 20 rep sets of reverse hypers afterwards with 400 pounds. Okay? I think that counts as a relatively intense workout. So it falls in that category. So you're looking at 15 grams. So a 2-hour workout, you're burning through 30 grams of carbohydrate. When we start looking at some of the data, even for post-workout muscle protein synthesis and all this stuff from insulin response, literally protein shakes cover everything. In other words, you come in and hit a 50-gram protein shake, or even a 70, 75-gram protein shake. Where are we at in terms of glycogen replenishment? People say, well, that's just protein. Yeah, but don't we break protein down into carbohydrate? So you're looking at your immediate, your short term, that fast spike away. So you take something that's 50 grams of that. About half of that can be converted into glucose, by the way, within the first hour. You're going to get a large insulin response from that. And that's what we find. Muscle protein synthesis doesn't even go up from adding carbohydrate once protein reaches a certain threshold post-workout from a shake. Adding carbs doesn't even seem to help. So if we're going to talk glycogen replenishment, if you weren't burning carbs as a fuel source between your sets, you're back to just the grams you burned of the actual lifting. Because if you're on a higher fat diet, you're just burning fat in between. Your body burns what you give it for fuel. So when you start looking at that, what are we talking about? You're pretty much glycogen is almost entirely replenished off those shakes. Why? Because about half of it, 20, 25 grams of just the protein is going to end up being glucose. Right? Gluconeogenesis. Well, there's also a couple grams of, like 3 grams of carbohydrate per scoop of that too. We're up to about 6. We're hitting close to our 30 grams of carbohydrate already just from the protein shake. From the protein being converted, which also burns fuel. Well, what about later in the day? They're like, oh, we need other glucose. Yeah, you can get that from protein too. Okay, so what are we talking about? Let's say you end up needing 100 grams of carbohydrates for other functions in the body, but you eat 200 grams of protein. Well, up to about half of it's going to be converted. You're going to get it from that. Plus, there's going to be trace carbs. I mean, let's say you're doing some Utopia milks and Greek yogurt. Let's say you end up with about 40 grams of carbohydrates, even on a low carb diet. All right, that's going to apply towards whatever the 100 grams or so you need. Then the protein, it's really easy to reach these numbers. Like your body is going to break it down from other stuff. Now, am I saying, oh, that means you don't ever need carbs or no one should ever eat carbs? No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you have the options of metabolic flexibility. And what I'm saying is once protein goes up, we have a lot more flexibility. Okay? And people need to remember your body can make a lot of things out of other stuff. Your only essential fats are going to be, omega-3s and omega-6s. And specifically ALA and LA. Others are conditionally there. You can make the other stuff out of carbohydrate. You can make it technically, in theory, out of protein breaking down into carbs. Same thing, we can make carbohydrates out of those. We can make them out of protein. We can make glucose out of the visceral backing on of fat. Right? You can get like 1 calorie or so of carbohydrate, of glucose, from every gram of fat you eat through the glycerol backing on it in the triglyceride chains. Your body will make a lot of this stuff. Human metabolic flexibility is way higher than we give it credit for. So what I would say, a lot of these foods need to be eaten based around your specific needs, your tolerances, your preferences. Okay? I only like sometimes a lower carb approach because for me, I end up getting a little tighter and a little leaner, a little more abs. My waist comes down when I'm not eating a bunch of carbohydrates because I'm not storing abdominal water in my GI tract, for me personally. Right? That's it. Plus, I get good satiety from it, good energy. Not everyone does, but if you don't, then don't do it. Okay? Same thing, other people thrive on, eating their rice and potatoes. Nothing wrong with that. And so what I'm saying with a lot of this, things like glycogen replenishment has been way, way overhyped. Look, get a bunch of protein in post-workout, and you're good. The overwhelming majority of you are not training hard enough to think about glycogen replenishment because you're lifting weights. And even then, just before we get into the studies on fat-adapted low-carb endurance athletes, that's a whole different ballgame. Again, you'd be surprised how little glycogen they need once they are used to running fat as a fuel source. Again, human metabolic flexibility is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Okay? And people don't give it enough credit. They obsess over the things that don't matter. I mean, literally, people worrying about glycogen replenishment are like, but when I go lower carbs, I lose weight. Well, you're losing sodium weight due to the shifts in aldosterone. It's not even glycogen like you think it is. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.